Welcome to another episode of It's Settled, the Amitros podcast, where you'll hear authentic stories of overcoming adversity after a life-changing injury and how injured workers and industry experts are making a difference. I'm Shawn, Deane, General Counsel at Amitros.
And I'm Melissa Coleman, Senior Vice President of Marketing at Amitros. If today's episode inspires you, please subscribe and leave a review to help us reach more listeners facing similar situations.
Now, it's settled. Let's get on to the episode and explore the human side of workers' comp and insurance claims. All right, it's settled. I'm Shawn, Deane, General Counsel with Amitros, and I'm joined with my co-host, Melissa Coleman, who heads up our amazing marketing team here at Amitros. And we couldn't be happier to be joined by Chris Letsos, the Chief Executive Officer at Kids Chance of America. Chris, welcome to the It's Settled Amitros podcast. We're so happy to have you here. And I guess let's just sort of jump right into it. Melissa, I'll let you say hi to Chris too.
Hi, Chris. It's good to see you.
Hey there. Great to see you.
And, full disclosure for our viewers, Kids Chance is a nonprofit charitable organization that is super near and dear to our hearts. I know both for Melissa and myself personally, but also for Amitros as an organization. It aligns incredibly with our mission to help injured workers and their families. And Kids Chance serves an incredible niche in an industry where there's otherwise a huge gap. So I guess before we get into kind of your background, which I want to talk about, because I want to hear about your why, and I know Melissa does too, for people who maybe are joining the podcast who aren't within the work comp industry and are hearing about Kids Chance for the first time, let us know what particular problem Kids Chance is kind of here trying to solve that maybe people don't realize exists.
Absolutely. No, and thanks for the opportunity and certainly for the partnership. So Kids Chance started almost 40 years ago in the state of Georgia. Bob Clyott, a work comp attorney, saw a huge need as he was supporting families and realized very quickly that young people were often left out of the equation, left out of the conversation, and wanted to make sure that those young people whose parents have been affected by injury or death at work had a roadmap for their future. We've really created our base since then around scholarships and have really evolved our mission to also include support of young people, of students along the way. So at Kids Chance of America, we represent a network of 50 state organizations. So there's a state organization in every state led by caring volunteers who do all the heavy lifting and the hard work day in, day out. Lifting up our mission and raising the necessary funds to award scholarships to many deserving young people. And at Kids Chance of America, we work to support our states, mobilize our brand, and to really reimagine and make sure that we're serving kids where they need it most. These injuries oftentimes take a huge toll on young people, and it often goes unheard because they're so focused on their parent and their family. So at Kids Chance, we work to provide them a voice, a sense of community, and a sense of belonging that ultimately ends in a scholarship that helps them pursue their dreams, whatever they are after high school, whether that's trade school or college. But along the way, also in building those connections and knowing that they're not in this alone and that we're in their corner no matter what, and that we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that they're successful.
I love it. And it's, again, just a note of full disclosure. I sit on the board for Kids Chance in Massachusetts, have for over 6 years now. And I tell people all the time, it's, other than working in Amitros, it's the coolest thing I get to do in the work comp industry. It's the most fulfilling thing in the world to help a child realize their educational dreams after such a horrific, tragic and life-changing event that they go through. My why for being involved in it is because I'm so aligned with Amitros' mission of helping injured workers. It's just an extension of that. But I know, and not to put you on the spot, but that's why you're here, Chris. So what is kind of your personal why as it relates to sort of the workers' compensation industry and why this is so close and personal to you?
So about this time last year, I had never heard of Kids Chance. And Kids Chance of America had decided at that time to identify some new leadership and help navigate who we wanted to be, right, where we wanted to go. And I spent 20 years at Boys and Girls Clubs and at Big Brothers Big Sisters working with kids. But I found my way there because of my father's injury. My father was injured when I was a freshman in high school. He fell down a flight of stairs, and my father was one of those tough guys. Never showed any emotion, would go to work, had, 3 or 4 jobs, not complain, and provided for us. So when he got hurt, and we quickly realized everything changed. He was a handyman and superintendent in apartments. So our apartment, where we lived, was part of that job. His salary, he was the breadwinner of the family. So everything just pivoted. We ended up having to move. We left New York and moved to the state of Florida. And after registering at school, the very first place I went was a Boys and Girls Club. I grew up in a program when I was a young child. I sort of lost connection and found it because of my father's injury. So about a year ago, when a couple of people reached out about Kids Chance, I quite honestly, at first, I didn't believe it, right? This can't exist. And then my wife did some deeper research and realized not only is Kids Chance for real, but we're in every state. We support hundreds of young people every year. Last year awarded over $3 million, almost $4 million in scholarships.
Wow.
So, I started listening and exploring this opportunity. And in the last several months, it's provided me with the opportunity to reconnect with my father. My father, we never talked about his injury after we settled in Florida. Obviously, talked to him about his care and how he feels. And along the way, I was there with him. I had to translate for him. He didn't speak English. It was, a challenge. And then when that chapter closed, we never opened that book again until this opportunity. And what I've heard over the last several months from all of our young people, our recipients and those connected to us, is that's probably the most important part of this. It's the opportunity to share how they feel, knowing that whoever they're talking to on the other side understands what this means and what this feels like. Over half of our kids that receive scholarships have lost a parent. So I'm learning that my story, my dad's still around. So although he's in pain and he's struggled, there's so many other kids out there who've lost a parent. So, it's a really emotional and deeply personal mission. And I truly believe that what Kids Chance volunteers like you, Shawn, what you guys do is not only connect with these young people, but you give them hope. And what's amazing is you're all volunteers. I've spent over 20 years in the nonprofit sector as a professional staff member. There's not many organizations that can say that nearly every penny goes right back to kids.
Yep.
In meaningful ways and in very individualized ways. It's not one size fits all. And it's truly a remarkable mission. And like I said, 2 years away from 40 years and nearly $50 million awarded. So what an incredible opportunity to get connected to Kids Chance and really help determine what the next 10, 20, 30, and 40 years are going to look like.
I think there's something so special about how you have a personal connection to the mission. I think as someone leading this organization, you have that viewpoint of what these children are going through. I think I don't know, I just imagine that makes you so uniquely qualified to be in this role. So I love to hear that. I'd also love to hear, do you have like a story of someone that Kids Chance has helped?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think, as soon as I started, that was my number one priority, was to connect with our scholars, our recipients, and to really understand how they connected to us, how we've influenced them. I've really valued those opportunities. And one that pops out, and we celebrate at Kids Chance, is Annie from Texas. Annie is one of our ambassadors. She's a mom now with a child and a husband, and she lost her father right before graduation, and she went from this extremely low of what's next for me, I can't go, I can't take these next steps. I can't go to college. I have to be there for my family and my mother, to finding Kids Chance in the state of Texas, and realizing that those volunteers weren't going to let her do that, that those volunteers were going to support her along the way, and that they were going to help her, craft her story. She found her way into the military, served our country, now is working on a PhD. And, when you talk about incredible resiliency, you talk about grit, you talk about grace. Annie is just, one example of that. There's so many more young people that I've had the opportunity to connect with who share their story, and the common thread along everyone I've talked to, whether they're, Annie from Texas or Michaela from Pennsylvania or anyone else from here. I live in the state of Florida to Oregon. It's that Kids Chance provides them something that no other outlet has given them, and that's that sense of belonging and connection. And really, that's where we lean on our partnerships with organizations and companies like Amitros to help us develop those critical components of what it means to belong, to be a critical friend to the industry, to make sure that everyone who does this work realizes that there's really special kids out there and families, and it's beyond just a statistic, and it's beyond just an injury, right? These are lives, these are families and communities that are affected. So I would challenge everyone at Amitros and anyone else listening to just visit our website and read the stories of these young people. They are beyond remarkable, and they make us proud every single day.
Melissa and I both attended the Kids Chance of Massachusetts Gala, and in many chapters, they have kind of their banner fundraising events, and these fundraising events are our lifeblood. They allow us to award these scholarships to these children who've had gone through so much. And we were both, at the table listening to Amber Moody speak. And Amber Moody is a Kids Chance mom. Kevin Moody was an ambassador last year. And she, I know you didn't get the opportunity to be there. You've been to a bunch of galas, and you were traveling all over, and, you can't be more places than, one. But Amber said almost the exact same thing you did. She said, not only does it help did it help my children realize their educational dreams, but it gave them hope. And, when you said, it really struck me when you talked about building a community too, because it's beyond just granting a scholarship to get that student through the next semester or help defray costs for books or housing or something, which is, it's why we're here. It's important, but secondarily, and I think something that you've really brought to it, I've felt it, I've seen it since you started, is this sense of community. And we're having our Kids Chance annual meeting coming up in San Diego. So not to give away the store, this episode probably won't get released until after the annual conference, but maybe talk about your vision, your next 3 to 5, and how this organization, in your mind, you'll see it expand.
And congratulations, first and foremost. I heard the gala in Massachusetts did exceptionally well. And that's really, again, the incredible sort of brand that we have, right? You guys are volunteers that come together and get this done. You're out there fundraising, doing the hard work, right? And, oftentimes people are afraid to ask, but when you're asking on behalf of Kevin and other kids, doesn't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, they matter. And, my hopes for Kids Chance is that, we're 2 years away from our 40th anniversary, and a lot has changed in the last 40 years. These injuries continue, right, to affect families, but post-secondary life has changed. The world has changed. Everything has become more expensive, and we've gotten a little more connected. And at Kids Chance, we kicked off out of the state of Pennsylvania a couple of years ago this initiative called Planning for the Future. And within that pipeline, we have younger and younger children being referred to us. For example, we just had a family in Virginia referred to us, and one was a newborn, for example. So we know that in 18 years, we want to be there in the state of Virginia for that child. But at Kids Chance of America, we need to build out what that looks like. And from my perspective and what I've heard from our young people, that means elevating their voice, right? That lived experience matters, and connecting to these children and families early, often, with some predictability, and really, with an opportunity to find local support. So recently we announced a couple of national partnerships, one with the National Alliance of Grieving Children, and really working to connect our states to those resources, whether it's bereavement programs or mental health support services, and really expanding on that. When I got home and found my father after his injury, as a teenager, and especially, at that time, you sort of internalize it all, right? You show up, you do what you're supposed to do, and then you quickly realize that, oh, wow, I can't ask for this, or I can't ask for that, or my plans have changed, and now our young people are bombarded with so many other issues. So mental health is certainly one that we want to focus on and connect. Number two is building a plan for their future. As we have younger and younger children connected to us in each and every one of our states, we want to make sure that Kids Chance helps them develop their plan along the way. So while they're in middle school, they can explore careers. In high school, they can really find who they are. And we're getting ready to announce a huge new national partnership with the Workers' Compensation Institute around some specialized initiatives to help young people in the pipeline develop that plan and figure out who they want to be. Similarly, every state has so many resources that we want at Kids Chance to be the convener around this conversation, and know that we can mobilize around advocacy, right? So in the state of Massachusetts, or here in the state of Florida, these young people, not only should they be relying on us, but there's so many opportunities to leverage in each one of our states, whether they're scholarships or apprenticeship programs. Because I can tell you, my journey, that's what I bring it back to, right? And I think it's critical. I had those people along the way. Both my parents dropped out of elementary school. They both worked their entire lives, came to this country with nothing, knew we were going to college, right? I didn't have a choice, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to get there. I didn't know what to major in, how to apply for scholarships. That's what Kids Chance does. It's not just the scholarships. I've been amazed at these stories where there's volunteers working one-on-one, and helping these young people find their path. And that's one promise we want to fulfill. So ultimately, I think Kids Chance, we've been planning so much for our future. We've been planning to grow. We've been planning to get into 50 states. And now that we've grown and that we're in 50 states, we now have to commit to one another and to our young people that we're going to fulfill that promise. And that promise means helping our young people develop their plan for their future, helping them access the resources to achieve their future, and then on the back end, helping them connect to careers and to help them overcome, in many cases, poverty or living at or below low income household in low income households. One thing I've been really surprised in, almost all of our young people are going to careers adjacent to work comp, healthcare, and talk about a unique pipeline where we have a couple thousand kids now just sitting there that I want to make sure they get into work comp so they can bring their lived experience to this, right? Serve clients, serve families, serve individuals, and reimagine the way work comp interacts with those that are hurt. That's really my ultimate goal, right? It's to get our kids to help shift the way we do business, number one. And then number two, it's to advocate on their behalf, because I can tell you, I served kids a long time. I was one of these kids. I had no idea Kids Chance existed. And now, months later, almost a year later, I am awed by not only the results of what our volunteers do and why you all do this, but the incredible stories of our young people and how successful they are and how they're connecting. They're serving on state boards. They're speaking. They're fundraising. That's incredible and doesn't often happen in our sector.
That's something that really struck me as you were talking before you actually, specifically said that point. Was we have talked for years now about how there's a deficit of talent in the workers' compensation industry, and we have a lot of folks who are retiring and they have specific skill sets, and we don't have the talent pool of young people coming in. And to your point, these students are uniquely qualified to empathize with injured workers and their families. It strikes me as there's so much opportunity there for them to find fulfillment, for us to better serve injured workers with empathy. I love that you're making those connections for these students.
Yeah, look, ultimately there's a couple things we have to overcome. Number one, and no offense to you guys or Amitros, right? But the work comp process is hard and it takes its toll on families. And no matter, how well intentioned or well versed the support is, right? This is still a traumatic event. So we want to make sure our families and kids know that the industry does care. And look, I'll be honest, I was completely blown away by that. I did not anticipate coming into this and meeting individuals like yourselves or Andrea or others right across the country who talk first about the well-being and the ultimate support of those that they serve. That doesn't happen, right? I was blown away by that. So number one, we want to make sure that we continue that conversation and that our families understand that overall, right, that there can be a positive connection. We can all sort of rally together to improve the experience and to support our families. And then number two, to your point, these young people know better than anyone what this looks like and feels like, and from experience, for example, like with law enforcement, when you consider I've served kids a long time, and the neighborhoods that needed it the most were the neighborhoods where our kids were afraid of law enforcement. You build that connection, you build that trust, and then you build that pipeline. Well, before you know it, law enforcement not only represents the communities they serve, but looks like the communities they serve. That's what Kids Chance can ultimately do. And I know there's others out there working on this, and it's critically important. But what Kids Chance is uniquely positioned to do is to build that very intentional pipeline. So kids are having these conversations in middle school. They're convincing mom, hey, this is okay. This is what I want to do. I can make a difference. And then they can make that decision and have whatever opportunity they want, right? They can come right out of high school and work. They can go to college and focus in on this. They could do both. But I believe that our young people can really change and continue to put the experience first, right, and help continue this incredible sort of journey for themselves as well.
You kind of alluded to it, Chris, but around talking about scaling and growth. I mean, when you say Boys and Girls Club, household name, United Way, American Cancer Society, all these altruistic, amazing nonprofit organizations that serve these missions. What do we need to do? And obviously, I don't expect you to have a perfect answer.
No.
What do we need to do to be able to go to Thanksgiving dinner and say Kids Chance, and people are like, oh, I know what that is. I mean, given the volume of catastrophic and fatal work-related incidents, this is not at all a knock on the organization. It's just part of the landscape. When I talk to a guidance counselor in a school district, they're like, gosh, I didn't know this existed. This is amazing. So, how do we expand this from what can become a little bit of an echo chamber within the industry to everyone knows about it?
Well, first of all, it's opportunities like these, right? And I know it's internal, right? But it still helps build our brand and build some energy. So, I think solidifying who we are within the industry is critically important. It's working together to leverage those relationships. So asking Amitros to send out to all of their clients and vendors and partners, we support Kids Chance. And then really what is going to drive this forward, I believe, are two things. Number one is our stories, right? We have to be very good storytellers, and the story tells itself. These young people, it's just remarkable, right? I've already talked about their grit and resilience and their grace, but talking about their desire to give back, their desire to stay connected, to make sure that they show up for other kids, right? That they show up for families, that they help elevate our message, right? So really investing heavily in those stories and celebrating them not only through ambassadors but incorporating their youth voice into everything we do. So at our conference, we'll announce two new special initiatives. One is our youth council and making sure that we are listening actively and responding accordingly. And then second is our young professional or recent, a little older, but that way we can really use them and use their stories and elevate their experiences to share who we are, right? And take advantage of their networks and almost create like a LinkedIn for Kids Chance, right? Where we affect change in the industry, but also in those individuals' careers and lives. The other unique opportunity we have is, I now, because this is, I wear the logo, I talk about it all the time. And I got to tell you, for 30 years, I didn't. So it's been, it's been healthy. But we got to find others who've been affected by this, right? I go out to breakfast now and I mention I work for Kids Chance and we support these young people. And, someone may overhear it and say, well, that happened to me.
Yeah.
Or that happened to this so and so, and what we have to do is create a way to gather that and mobilize that and create a movement. And really, that's going to be our focus over the next 2 years as we approach our 40th anniversary. It's to elevate this work beyond the network and to create a movement and a movement that represents these unique experiences that recognizes what these young people have overcome, what their families have had to overcome, and who we want to be moving forward. Because these young people are incredible, but we also want to make sure that the parent who wasn't injured is also connected, right? Or if they lose a parent, whoever takes on these kids, kinship and everything else. I can remember vividly, my mother having to increase her work, right? I had to get a job. No one walks you through that. So building those communities or those support opportunities or that sense of belonging. But ultimately, Boys and Girls Clubs, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, they've been around for hundreds of years, right? And we're just getting started. But I think our stories are unique. And I will say, not only do we provide a really special opportunity for the work comp industry to fill their ranks, I also think that we should be partnering and will be partnering more with post-secondary institutions. If you look at data, fewer and fewer young people are going to college, and fewer men are doing anything, whether it's going to college or working. It's every year we have fewer and fewer men. More and more men are choosing to disconnect and not going to college, not working, not just sort of floating along. And as our partner colleges and institutions are struggling to figure out who they're going to be in the next 20 years. Kids Chance has a pipeline of young people ready, right? They're resilient. They know what they want. They know how to overcome these obstacles, and they are the perfect model for a new enrollee at targeted institutions. So part of what we want also to do is build our Kids Chance network and Kids Chance colleges or Kids Chance universities that know that these young people they're not only committed, they're going to be successful. And we want to build those pipelines in each state and regionally. And, Massachusetts is one of our first states that we're having some good conversation with. Florida certainly one as well. But I think that ultimately will help us elevate who we are because there's thousands of kids out there that we're currently serving that we just haven't connected the dots around yet.
Structurally, we're a little unique in that, we have the Kids Chance of America mothership, and then we have, independent, semi-autonomous state chapters. Do you think, and, I full on leading question as someone who's a member of our Council for States organizations in collaborating with other states. I mean, I've learned so much from hearing about what other states do. And I mean, I've even taken notes of some things that you're talking about. I think community within the chapters is really important in collaboration there. How do you see collaboration between state chapters evolving, and what are the benefits there and some potential?
Well, I learned early on that the Council of States is probably our most important tool or avenue or resource that frankly and unfortunately, we just haven't leveraged. We have not invested in, just for clarity, I'm the first professional staff member at Kids Chance of America. So, even at the national level, although they've gotten some support from fractional administrative support, it's been volunteers. So, I really want to leverage the Council of States and build those very intentional connections around collaboration. And what I've learned in building nonprofit organizations and movements is we're only as strong as our boards. Strong boards build strong organizations. And what I've heard pretty clearly, and really what we're looking to the sector and industry to help fund for us is a new way of doing this work. So doubling down on data, making sure that we're taking that obligation away from states and empowering our state leaders to use tools that can help us tell that compelling story, tools that can make the scholarship process more efficient, that work directly with our post-secondary institutions, marketing and branding initiatives that incorporate cause marketing, right? And, I mentioned, and certainly an ask we're going to make of all of our corporate partners, as Amitro sends out flyers, during the month of Kids Chance Week, do we celebrate that partnership and say, learn how to get more involved? Right. And I think that's really, in my experience, where I've gotten the most benefit. It wasn't when, I as a professional went to all these programs. It was when I got with other professionals and other board members and talked through our adventures and our work. So at the conference, we'll be announcing some expanded capacity building initiatives, some opportunities to bring more states together to do collaborative work, whether that's regionally or through targeted partnerships or specialized initiatives. And really, I think you said it, Shawn, you guys know better than anyone. State leaders are doing the work. State leaders are mobilizing. State leaders are awarding almost $4 million a year without any, added. Well, there's some resource, but I mean, it's incredible. So really, my goal is to help build those connections, elevate the voice of the Council of States, and then in 2 years walk away with a new framework for Kids Chance, where at the national level we are supporting our states, we're building strong organizations, we're a true value add and removing obstacles for our state volunteers to be successful. Number one, and then number two, it's to help sort of also redefine what success means in a post-secondary landscape that is changing every single day. And what that means in Massachusetts may differ from Florida, but Massachusetts and New York may have something in common, whereas Florida and Georgia may, and building those links. So we're going to be announcing a lot of special national relationships to help us do that. But ultimately, what it comes back to is our mission, right? And it's making sure that every young person, every family knows that when they're connected to Kids Chance, we're going to show up and support them. We're going to not only be in touch with them, but we're going to make sure that they know of special programs in their community. If they're hungry, that there's a Feeding America affiliate there. If they need housing, that there's Habitat, and building those really localized responses that we're piloting now in a couple of other states. From there, throughout their journey, they'll be able to build their plan. Right. And come to you as a volunteer and say, I want to get into the workers' comp industry, or I want to be a nurse, or I want to be a truck driver. And then working with the local states to help build those national relationships. So we are known in the first responder world that, 30% of our scholarships go to kids of first responders, right? That our largest feeder is the construction industry. So connecting the dots around big companies across the country. So that way our states don't have to do that, right? We can help and hand off. And then, really create those unique ways to not only elevate who we are and celebrate the mission, but allow others outside of WorkComp to invest in this. These kids, they're affecting change not only in their families, but in their communities, their cities, and their states. And the simple fact, and I've been blown away again by our young people, at least the data I've seen, almost all of our kids graduate. That doesn't happen. So these are kids that overcome obstacles, get to their post-secondary, college, university, trade school, whatever it is, finish, and then work. We're talking about a way to help move forward not only, our community impact, but also the American dream, right? These are kids that, whose parents have been hurt on the job, mainly in labor, right? And ultimately are being hugely successful and then reaching back and helping. I think that's the secret sauce that we at the national level want to figure out and then empower our states to double down on that.
Yeah.
For someone who's listening and is incredibly inspired by this mission and wants to turn that into action, what can they do to help Kids Chance? Where can they be the most impactful? What are some of those different avenues?
Well, I think that's a really individualized question, right? My guidance would be to visit the Kids Chance of America website and connect with state leaders, local, and allow us the opportunity to share who we are, share what we do, and share how we impact our young people. I think that's really the most critical need. It's to build on the 1,000 board members that we have across the country, and about an additional 800 to 900 volunteers. So we 2,000 people have come together across the country for these young people. So that would be step one. It's getting involved, whether it's at a special event or just learning about Kids Chance on the ground. And then, depending on where and how they want to be of influence, there's various committees, there's various conferences and other opportunities to connect around this mission and to help us. And ultimately, it may also just be, hey, I know someone who was affected by this, or I know someone that may have some interest. I know the regional VP at Ace Hardware or at Home Depot. I'd love to connect Kids Chance, right? I think that's our call to action for our partners, and Amitros is one of our strongest. And I didn't want to not say this, so I'm going to say it here because it fits. For planning for the future, Amitros now is our second leading referral source, and over the last year or two, Amitros isn't just focused on this. I mean, the numbers keep going up every single month. So I genuinely wanted to thank you all, the team, for really buying into that and referring your families and individuals to Kids Chance, because that's what drives us, right? It's a number of young people who engage with us. So the other ask again is, keep doing that. But as you think about, who you have influence over, who you can connect us to, that's a huge opportunity, right? Because we're only as strong as those individuals who believe in us and are willing to leverage our brand and say, you know what, I support Kids Chance. Let's bring us together, and really that's the ultimate goal. So whether it's at the state level, regional, or national, there's unique ways for people to get connected. And ultimately, and I referenced this earlier, I can be on this meeting and podcast or Zoom or whatever we want to call it and say, I have been blown away that, and especially at the state level, every penny raised is going to kids. That's a remarkable thing to say, right? There's huge impact in that. And what we try to do is fuel the states with other dollars so they don't have to worry about the admin cost, right? So for those that want to get involved, know that your support, your service, your showing up does make a difference for young people.
So as the old adage goes, Chris, if people remember the last thing you said the most, for all the listeners out there on the It's Settled Amitros podcast, if someone listening here remembers one thing about Kids Chance, what do you want that to be?
Kids Chance, our North Star, the North Star of Kids Chance, is to just fulfill a promise to young people that they are not only capable, but they can overcome a family member's traumatic injury or death, right? One thing that all of our young people have shared with me is this journey of being so alone after an incident to finding Kids Chance and not just being part of something, but knowing that Kids Chance is changing their life. Kids Chance is pouring into them. Kids Chance is giving their parent their voice back, right? That's what I would say, right? Just listen to these young people, engage with them, and know that there's incredible opportunities out there to affect change. But at Kids Chance, these young people, especially for work comp professionals, especially for those listening and those working at Ametros or affiliated with Ametros. Wow, these young people make us proud every single day. And it's because of the hope and opportunity that's provided to them because of support from you all and support from others.
I love it. When, we all first found out that you were going to be the lead the organization, we weren't sure. We didn't know who you were. And the second I heard you talk, I knew you were the right person for the job because you immediately articulated empathy for the people that we serve. And you've done that here. And your why and your background and your experience is so appreciated by not only the states, but at the national level too. And we're so thankful for your leadership and what you've done and what you're going to do for the organization in serving children and families. So it's settled. That's Chris Letsos, Kids Chance of America. For more information, you can go to kidschance.org. And we'll make sure that we put up information when we release the podcast episodes so people will know where to go and how to get involved. So on behalf of Melissa and I, we can't thank you enough for joining us for this episode.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to It's Settled, the Ametros podcast. You can find us on major streaming platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Your review means a lot. It helps us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. For more information about Ametros, visit our website at ametros.com. That's ametros.com.
Join us next time for more uplifting stories. It's settled. Stay inspired and keep making a positive impact.